Hey guys, Anthony, 4x4 Diesel. A little bit of information for you about antennas. Well, a whole lot of information actually. A lot of the different types of antennas we used, all the problems we've seen over the years. So this is going to include antennas, brackets and all that sort of thing. It is a weekend. Luckily I've had a bit of time. I'm doing a bit of maintenance on the vehicles and just pre-trip, getting ready, fixing up a few little bits and pieces. I'll tell you what we've got actually. You know what, while we're at it, all the information. So, maintenance items on the 120. So we have the ARB compressor in there for about a bit over 5 years. It's a common problem, these compressor buttons, the little bits of, you don't have to knock them. If you knock them, you're going to break them, but even with a bit of use, the plastic at the sides get brittle and that part of the switch just kind of like falls off. So you need to get another one of those. Usually ARB stores have got them handy. If they're nice, they're just going to give you one because they are pretty crappy, but they might charge you, I don't know, 10 or 20 bucks or something like that for it as well. It's kind of up to them and you. It's all about attitude. So that's the first thing. Another part I'd like to point out, another maintenance item to do with that. So it's not just about antennas. Maintenance, we'll call it a maintenance video. Look, it's going to be mainly antennas, guys, but I'll just show you this as well. If you've got the ARB compressor on at least one of the vehicles, I just use it like this, and the reason I use it like this is just like at the surface. See the clip, it works really well. You just get down there and you clip it on and it automatically pumps, and you stand there, have a bit of a chit chat for a minute. I've got a pencil gauge. You get to learn how long it takes. So rather than be bent down holding a button and it's got to go through that device, probably slows it down a little bit as well. I can't be bothered, you know. I'm just gonna, and it literally goes like this: clip on, clip off. So it's not hard to do that and check it with your pencil gauge. I've been doing it for years, but what I've noticed is an air leak that come up. It actually started a couple of years ago, at least, very minor, and it got worse. Now, I've worked out what the majority of the cause of the problem is. So whether it's this or whether it's the pump up kit, a lot of people probably don't use this, but I do. What happens is, this is the charge air type fitting. So there's different types of air fittings. And what happens, I believe, a little bit of, there's not much wear there, but look, I don't know whether it's a little bit rough on the bottom there, could be that. It does look a little bit rough there. There's an O-ring in there that seals as well, but what I found by trying it, and you can see a bit of wear there, but that's not going to matter. Normally they wear on the edge there, and that it just allows it to get away a little bit from the O-ring at the base, and it doesn't seal, but this could be just need a bit of a cleanup. I'm not sure really, but I'm not going to muck around with it. What I've done is I've got another one of these plugged into this airline, and it solves the problem pretty well. Well, what happens is when you plug it in like that, it goes, and as soon as I twist it, it stops. This one doesn't matter which way you twist it, it leaks. With the new one, it stops, but it does leak like that a little bit until I twist it. So there might be a slight issue with the O-ring in here also. So we're going to get that and replace that. So a little bit of maintenance information there for you. Once you get to about 5 years, you might have these. It's not really a problem. Look, the airline, not a problem. It's a wear and tear thing from use, really. That's a problem, okay? They should be replaced for free, in my opinion. And as I said, I think sometimes they are. Now so we're doing a bit of maintenance. A lot of people see, if you watch the videos, when I'm driving the 120, you may or may not see, it's got 3 antennas on the front quite often. And people go, what do you got 3 antennas for? What are they for? And all that sort of thing, right? And of course, the experts that know better, they say, you just get a good antenna and you'll be right, okay? Well, back in the day, we used to have a good antenna and you won't be right. Every sort of antenna or bracket I think I've managed to break, so we'll run through those. We'll give you a rough idea what happens. I'll just grab another one quickly. Now, let's start off with, I haven't got one anymore, but you know those stainless steel, you get them on this is an ORICOM, so it's black, but the silver type, I'll bring it over here actually, because there's one I've just removed, because it's broken with one of the common problems we regularly come across. So when you've got one of these types, obviously it's free dress day in case you see me, whatever, I'm not dressed up for you or anything, but the silver type elevated feed with these little whips on them, okay, and they also have these longer ones, right? So let's just imagine that's there, the silver one. Doesn't matter what color it is or what brand it is. We're not picking on brands. I'll tell you why. Because I've had every brand break and fail, right? If you use the vehicle enough, if the antennas are mounted on the bull bar and it's, I can't do it, but it's pretty big and heavy, shaking around on the road enough. If you do it enough, something's going to break. Things fall to pieces, right? So the first antenna that I remember that had quite a bizarre breakage was one of the silver elevated feed, right? And it went to a stainless steel, and around about here, it's got like a coil spring in it. I haven't got one here. You know the ones I mean. Quite thick steel. I reckon 2 to 3 millimeter stainless, and it did a lot of trips, don't get me wrong, went for years, but eventually it broke at that coil there, so we didn't have an antenna. What I was left with is the elevated feed and a little bit on there. So the radio still worked, that was cool, no dramas. The rest of it never had an issue. It got replaced, not the whole antenna, the antenna got replaced with a whip like what I'm holding. That's what I went to get, you see. Like a, what's that, about an 18-inch whip, whatever it is anyway. Makes about a 6 dB antenna out of it anyway, right? So it was on that silver one, whatever brand it was, can't remember, Mobile One or something like that. Anyway, like I said, been through the brands. One over here is a GME, we'll get to that. And this is not hanging on any brands, because I'll say it again, mate, more or less, whatever brand I use the most of, I'm going to have the most problems with. All right, so what happens when you got one of these on there? All right, this is the deal. They vibrate, right? Because look, you know, kind of like goes like that. See what's happening right there? Right, because there's sort of heavy up this end, heavy at this end, and it goes like that. That's the weak point right there, guys. They break, they snap in there, and they won't be working properly, and you won't necessarily see the damage at the start, and it could be doing damage to your radio. Eventually, it's going to go bingo like that. So they're fairly unreliable as well, and I know there's people sitting there going, oh, I got one of them, I've been using it for years. You've either been lucky, you've got really cushy suspension, you've been lucky, you don't use the car enough, something along those lines. Keep driving it, it'll happen. Happens to everyone. I'm not the only one it's happened to. So that's your breakage on those, right? And you can see this one is a lot thicker than this one here. So perhaps there's going to be a difference with those. Don't know, we'll find out, because we've got plenty of antennas here. Okay, so that's number one, the stainless. Number two is the long whip. Let's move on to the short whips. Okay, then you replace it with these little short whips, right? Cool. Except what happens is, look at this. I don't know if you can see this. See? It's loose as nothing. What used to happen when this was thin, right? These used to be thin and whippy. Again, I've probably got some spares there I could whip out and show you, but when they were thin, when you were driving, they used to literally wiggle all the way that way and all the way that way, 90 degrees, constantly going like that, and eventually, you know what happens right there, they'd break off, okay? Or they'd come out like this. So they've changed them. There's different brands, of course. There's different brands, and this one's quite stiff, which is good. It hardly moves, so I kind of like that, but I've had this more than once, 2 or 3 times, where after an amount of time, it's just, you could probably clamp that to make it stay there, but it's going to get untidy. I tried. I couldn't do it without taking off the vehicle. And then, so that's the first problem. So that's the failure of that section there. So carry spares, guys. This is what I always say, have a handheld. Those ORICOM, UHF, the 5-watt handhelds, they're like, get them for $150 on special. Can't beat it, mate, you know. They work really well, the 5-watt handhelds. You should always have one. If you're getting out of the car, you can still communicate with people. Okay, so then what happened was, on the vehicle, I thought I'll just undo that and I'll change that over because I've got a few spares there. And it won't come undone for whatever reason, and it's spinning the whole guts of this, right? Which was going to end in disaster. I'm not sure how serviceable these are. I think the GMEs are pretty good. I think maybe that even screws, but it can't. I don't know. Yeah, that something screws. Anyway, I'm going to muck around, get the whole thing off, and do my best to get this off without wrecking the antenna. And it's not that old, this one. The GME, I reckon it's only been on for less than 2 years. It hasn't been through much work at all. So disappointing. And I'm not picking up the antenna again. It's been a solid antenna, and it does work very well. You don't need a giant, big, expensive antenna to get the job done. It's more about where you mount it, how you mount it, and how good your connections are. I've got to be honest, that's what it is, and which antenna you choose, whether you want a short wave or, you know, to get the distance there, the longer antenna to get the distance. So just think generally, long antenna gets the distance, short antenna doesn't get the distance, but it's going to get over the hills better, okay? So that's another story, not explaining that. So we've been through a few failures, right? And it doesn't matter how big and fat and tough it looks. You know, we've got one of those here, right? Here it is, right? A few years ago, we were running 2 of those up on brackets. Now, this is another video. It's a really good reason why all bull bar manufacturers, including ARB, should make a massive point of making sure there's a proper welded UHF antenna on the bull bar. On these 120 bull bars, they didn't do it. There's no bracket there, right? So you go and fit your own bracket. We've had, with these with this type, right? With the, what do you call it? You know, it goes like that, or you can actually put it that way depending on the size of the bar. I don't know if you knew that, but anyway, goes either way. But the point is, this part's fine. Never had an issue with that stainless, but these break off next to the thread. I've had that before as well. Not necessarily over tightening. Sometimes you've got to tighten enough to hold itself still on the bull bar because they twist on the bull bar. So you're just going far enough to stop it moving, but you know, it's small material. You know, let's look at that again. I can tell you without measuring, I know that's around about 5.5 mil thick, okay? You need about an 8 or 10 mil material, okay? Got to make things solid, guys. Four-wheel driving. Message for the manufacturers. Four-wheel driving, travelling the Australian outback, things need to be solid, please. These little brackets here, you know, they're quite thin, you know, you get a bit of movement, there's a bit of flex there. Now, I'll be honest, I had one of those big, it was a bit of R&D. I mean, I didn't see in the instructions where it said do not use an antenna longer or heavier than this or that, right? So as much as I didn't like it, it was the bracket that's available. ORICOM antenna, ORICOM bracket, right? It didn't take long to split. There's two screws there. You can see where they go down through there. It's split across the top, bada bing, right? So the other thing that can happen with these big ones, again, doesn't matter what branding, they get shaken up that much, and particularly if you've got the long extension on, well, it behaves differently on every vehicle. That's what you've got to watch. Depending where you mounted it, you've got to look at your antenna. Sometimes the longer extension holds it stiller and it does it better. Sometimes the short is worse. So look, that's for you to work out. I'm just trying to tell you. They can go to pieces on the inside and you won't even see it. And that goes for these as well. And it can damage your radio. So don't blame the radio or the manufacturers if it's the antenna that's caused the problem. And sometimes you can have a short in there that it's not like a full dead short, it's just slightly, and it can cause problems. It can be really hard to find, a bit like a pin in a coax, although that's a dead short anyway. That's an old trick that people used to do back in the day. They used to go around to people's houses and put, you know, people that had base stations, they pin the coax to short it out. You know, crazy stuff used to go on anyway, just to stop someone talking on the radio anyway, because, you know, it's a real pain when you've got to shorten your coax and, you know, could you imagine it? Terrible. Anyway, so there's some of the failures we've had. Now with the brackets, I've mentioned this. I've mentioned this before on the groups and stuff, and people have said, "Oh, just try one of these, try one of those." I've never had a problem, and appreciate everyone's input. So keep doing it. Don't take it the wrong way. But I've had those cast alloy aluminium brackets and whatever. Maybe not the brand you showed, but you know, more or less same thing, same, you know what, different bucket, sort of, you know, with or without a brand. I believe, I could be wrong. So I've had the alloy cast ones, and it's not just luck, because I've had them at this side break, I've had them at that side break, I've had those stainless bolts, as I said before, break, I've had this break. Now, so that's why there's 3 antennas, guys, because when I go away on a trip, I need to communicate quite often. I've organised a trip, I'm the trip leader, and we just need to be able to communicate. So we've got the handheld there as backup, and we've got 3 antennas. Now, the good news is these 3 antennas have been in place for quite a while. I think the car's been a bit lazy though, it needs to do some more trips and get out there, but so far so good. Now this big fat ORICOM antenna on the side is still working really well, and it's mounted on the side here. It's quite a solid mounting position, and that's the only place you'd be able to mount a big antenna on a bull bar like this that hasn't got factory brackets, unfortunately. The bad news is they don't mount level, okay? You can muck around with spacers and that. I think you can get those from ARB as well, that you can space up the antenna to get it level. Obviously level's going to work better. I don't worry about it too much, because what am I going to be going up, downhill, left, right? You know, what, are you going to stop and re-shim your antenna every time it changes undulation? So it doesn't really matter about the straight thing. It would help if it was straight like that, but it's not a big deal because your car's going to be over the hill to the next car, up, down, undulating anyway, right? But I can tell you, just to give you some feedback, this antenna absolutely booms compared to this one here at the side, right? Even with the extension on, because it's nice and straight and it's in the middle, whatever. It might be the small baby, it might be 50 bucks worth of whatever it is, I don't know, compared to a couple $100 antenna, you know, a full retail, I think these are 300 bucks, because this is your 3 dB. The cap comes off, it's not going to come off at the moment, but it comes off and you put your long extension on, and these with the long extension up here absolutely boom. So if you get one of these big ORICOM, I think it's an ANU 1200, they absolutely boom. Awesome base station antenna, and awesome if you've got a solid place to mount it, okay? But I would probably recommend to, unless you've got somewhere really solid to mount it, stay away from antennas like this unless you're mounting on a nice solid flat surface. So if I had to pick out the 3 antennas that we had here that you probably saw on the vehicle in videos, and that was, you know, this one was, you know, over here, whatever the case may be. If I had to pick out of the 3 what was most reliable, it's going to be that big fat one on the side. Why? Because there's no aftermarket screwed sort of bracket added on, and I've got an extra screw in the back of this bracket here to stop that moving up and down, so I don't have to over tighten it too much and break things and bend things and all that, right? This is probably your most reliable one. I would love to have it more central, because of course your bull bar with the twist at the sides gets the maximum movement, right? Just your bull bar, it's kind of going like that the whole time, side to side twist. So whatever's right in the middle, I'm not saying I put it right in the middle, but if it was in the middle, it's going to get less of that twist, if you know what I mean. Well, I suppose it's more twist in the middle, if you think about it, because it's going to go like that, where at the side it's going to be going up and down. So maybe that, yeah. So there you go, something to think about. I hadn't thought about it that much. There you go. Should think before you speak, or you look like a anyway. What I'm saying is, solid antenna on a solid bracket. Personally, I would like to have it up on a solid welded bracket here. And I know there's limited space with opening the bonnet, but I'm pretty sure you can get one in about here with a little slot. Always guys with a slot, so we can get the antenna on and out, in and out with the coax without having to pull the whole coax out. That'd be really good as well. But it doesn't need to be as deep as what they normally are, so it hits anything. Look, somewhere, look, I'm not going to engineer where the bracket's got to go, but there really should be a bracket on every bull bar. I'll show you the damage on the bull bar just to give you an idea what happens if you've gone and mounted. So just be aware if you're thinking about mounting a bracket or something like this, because look, these bull bars from manufacturer, as far as I know, they've got black paint or black powder coat. I think it's black paint, but I'm not sure. And then when they get coated, they get them powder coated. So it's, I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe it's not paint, I believe it's powder coat. And that's why it looks like, if you look at it here, it looks like plastic that's been twisted, because, you know, I put a bit of rubber over to help protect it, but it's just pulled right through it all. I'm going to show you anyway, I'll give you a quick look. But that's why, guys, that's why there's 3 antennas, that's what they're for. They're all for the UHF. I run a dual antenna unit. There's an ORICOM, and I know the model number. It's a dual antenna unit, not the dual channel one. There's one that runs dual channels as well, but you know, they're quite innovative. But this was the dual antenna unit. And why did I like that? Because I could have 2 antennas up here to make it reliable. Obviously, 2 is better than 1. If one fails, you've got the other one. But I could have one as with a short extension on, and one with a long one, you know, like 2 of these, one of those and one with a long, or one of these with a short and one with, and that way, if you're out in the open, you're using your long antenna. And look, you can have it on a setting that automatically detects which one works best, or you can manually select by pressing a button. This one, that one, this one, that one, you know? So, which was really good, because you'd go into, rather than have to get out and unscrew your antenna, you could just press the button once you get into that hilly terrain, and you got your range back short distance over the hills to your mates. And once you're out in the open and you're out in the highway and you're overtaking whatever, and you maybe got a couple of k's ahead or more, that long antenna, because the short one would cut out, it just hasn't got the distance, the long one would have double the distance. So really handy to have. I don't know the number, I could probably, if you really want to know, yeah, I'll go and have a quick look. Okay, UHF 182, okay? I don't know if they even still sell them anymore. It's been in there for a few years. UHF 182, dual antennas. I don't know if they sell it, but if you want one, that's the number, UHF 182. Anyway, guys, I'll just show you. So I think that, now I'm going to go through one more. There's another one I didn't mention as well. So you think these are pretty good and you got one of these and you haven't had a problem yet. At one stage I was thinking these are the most reliable, okay? I was thinking, you know what, the most basic, cheapest $50 antenna, this is the one you want. Guess what? I had one break, the spring broke. See this spring here? About exactly halfway down. If you look around, you'll see my posts, you'll see my videos, I'll share the information, but halfway along here, you know, it broke off and it went doing, and it was just hanging there by the wire, you know, next stop. And that was, and where did that break, guys? That was mounted over here on the side, right, where supposedly we worked out it was just mainly going up and down, but I can tell you, it used to wobble around a lot. You want to get a solid antenna if you're going to put on the side here, not one of these small ones. I'll tell you why, because with a little spring, they wobble around, they bash the hell out of the headlight. This headlight's got lines. This vehicle has been just about everywhere, not everywhere, just about. I'm just trying to paint a picture. It's been a lot of places, it's been around, a lot of rough roads, and the antenna marks from having that other antenna that broke eventually. So that's what I mean. They've taken a beating. I'm not saying there's any particular one that failed sooner. I suppose if something failed sooner, it was any of these brackets with these big fat antennas up there. That was a bit dumb, really. I'll admit that. Yeah. See, I'll cop that one, no problem. Cop that. You know, I did think about it. I didn't like it. What other options did I have? They're the antennas I had. I needed them on this bull bar. I wanted to. Yeah, should be right. Haven't heard anything negative, and that's why I provide the information to you, because it's just not going to work out. Okay. That's why I got 3 antennas. Now, what happened today? I told you we're going to take off that small one. Didn't work out, so I've got to do a bit of maintenance. And I'd been thinking about removing one because these 3 had been fairly reliable. I thought, well, let's just stick with that, because what did I just say? I think this is the most reliable. So I'm going to keep that there as my spare. That's connected, but this one certainly works better. It's out of the way. It's completely out of the view. Not that a small antenna matters in your view anyway, but it's completely out of the way. It is quite a solid antenna. It's got a solid spring, and the bracket's pretty good too. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to carry that spare whip. If I go on a big trip, the spare whip will go in for there, because I do want this to be my 6 dB, right? I'll also carry the spare short whip, which I've got a couple of those in there, and I'll carry a spare bracket, and it's got the slot out, right? So if the antenna breaks, whatever, I can change the whip. If this part fails, well, it doesn't matter. We're in the business, but it doesn't matter. If it's the bracket that breaks for whatever reason after, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 years of getting absolutely hammered around, going like this, and it fatigues anyway, well, then I've got a spare bracket that'll bolt straight on. So I think I've got it covered. I believe this is going to be reliable. Except for where that's going to break there. I'm going to carry my spare bracket. I think we're in business, guys. 2 antennas, ORICOM UHF 182 dual antenna unit, running the ANU 1200 and the I don't know what. Could probably find it that for you too. Should I? No, it doesn't matter. You know what it looks like. It's the one they got heaps. I wouldn't actually necessarily recommend this one if you're going to put it on that K-on rear mount. Or K-on have also got a. I'll show you this other bracket. Actually, I'll just go and grab one. So you know K-on have got that rear antenna bracket. That's awesome. If you're going to run the rear antenna bracket, just search on my channel, rear antenna, K-on bracket, ORICOM antenna, stuff like that, and you'll find it. It looks very similar to this, but because the bracket's, it's 4mm steel, that bracket on the back, like this one, but because it's, there's a bit of length to it, I wanted to go even lighter than this, so I got the one with a smaller spring. It's not in this video, but you can go check that out if you like. Now this bracket, this is another innovative idea that K-on have just come up with. Now, have you ever noticed, I don't know if you've ever seen a vehicle where, you know, there's these UHF antenna mounts on the side guard here. They're really thin things. They screw into the tin here. It's just pathetic. Don't do it. Don't buy one of those. And if you've got one, get rid of it. I'm sorry if you have. They just shouldn't even be, even for a passenger car. No, it's just, they shouldn't even be legal, mate. It should be written into the Australian standards that they're rubbish. Anyway, they're here, they're screws, they're never secure, they wobble around, they scratch your paintwork, and then your coax come in, it rubs there. It's total rubbish. So what have K-on done? Check this thing out, right? What's going to happen is you take your bolts out of your bonnet there, right? And this isn't necessarily for the 120, right? And that bolt's up there in those 2 bolt holes. And I can't show you, but you know what's going to happen. This is out the other end of the bonnet. So the bottom end of your coax will be here. So as the bonnet closes, your coax, you know, you'll be able to sort that out. Look, I haven't fitted one yet. This is one I'm going to test fit and probably do a video and show you how to install it once we know what we're doing. I do have a vehicle earmarked for that. One of our Prados needs an antenna mount. And it's not that one of the 2 you can see in this picture. So we'll sort that out hopefully in the coming months and give that a try. I don't know what else I've got for you on antennas, guys. Did I miss anything? We've covered the short whips failing, the long whips failing, the springs failing. You know, these springs can break, you know, that spring can break. I haven't seen a big one break, but I reckon internally we had one that was, yeah, it was a bit, something must have happened inside. I mean, it had been absolutely hammered for years, so I'm not surprised by any of this. Like I said, not picking on any brands. Maybe a bit of feedback for them if they want to try and make it better. Now, all I'm going to do, I'm going to bring you down over to this bull bar, and we'll have a look at the damage from placing brackets on there. Okay, so that's on the front. Now, that is rubber that will probably clean off. I've given it a good clean. But I haven't given it a scrape. You can see that rubber's going to scrape off, right? You can see that, right? But see above it, see what it does to the, You know, so just be aware of that, guys. Just want to show you that if you're going to place brackets on your nice painted bull bar, don't think it's not going to damage it. Let's come around this side and have a look as well. All right. That, I think that's the black that was underneath the silver, right? Like I said, I think they come out factory black. If I got it right, if anyone from ARB is watching and you want to put a comment up, that's cool. You can let me know what the deal is. But, and I'm not complaining, I'm just saying, well, I kind of am complaining, I suppose, because at the end of the day, put a bracket on the bull bar. And I know you're saying you got one on the side, but not exciting. Anyway, that's it, guys. If you found that helpful, hopefully you did. And if I've earned your subscription, oh, the sticker's coming off. That's no good, is it? You know. Anyway, if I've earned your subscription, please subscribe, turn the bell on, give us a thumbs up if you got something out of that, and I'll be looking at the comments if you've got any input, and of course, you know, helping other people by providing information or experiences you have. I have to give that sticker a bit of a trim to tidy it up. All right, guys, thanks for watching. See ya.